Hi, everyone. Welcome to Take Part. This is the podcast where we talk about reaching out, joining in to better your life, achieve your goals, and experience deeper connection. Before we dive in, I just want to say this is a new podcast, so appreciate any ways that you can support. It is primarily based on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe. It's also on all of the podcast platforms, so please follow along there. If you would like to get emails every week, you can go to takepart.substack.com. All right. I'm so excited about today's episode. I've got Laura Kiniry with me. Laura, hello.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a full-time freelance writer. I specialize in travel, but I also do food and culture and the outdoors. I live in San Francisco. I'm a 30-year resident of the city, and I write for a lot of different publications. I am a Smithsonian travel correspondent. I write for BBC Travel, Atlas Obscura, Condé Nast Traveler, AARP, a lot of the AAA travel magazines. And sometimes I harvest olives in Italy.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay, I have to ask about that. When did you do that last?
I haven't done it in a while, but I went to Italy for a story on art restoration and just fell in love with the family that was hosting me. And they invited me back to harvest 700 olive trees that November. And I went back and it was backbreaking work, but it was magical. And so then I went back the following year again. It's been a little bit of time, but I did just see that family, the patriarch and his wife in Vancouver, where they live part of the year.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's lovely. Oh my gosh. I love those international connections. It's always so crazy when you're meant to meet someone in one part of the world and then you see them again in a completely different part of the world.
I love it.
Very, very cool. Oh my gosh. But you wrote a very wonderful piece for Smithsonian on third places, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So, what is a third place and why are they important?
So, a third place is a place outside of home, which would be the first place, and outside of work, which would be the second place. A third place is a place where you go to build community. It's outside of your family, it's outside of your work culture, and it could be a place, it could be as simple as a church or a library or a park. It could be a rec center, but it could also be something like a sports community or a meetup group for hiking, anything that really just brings you in contact with other people that you might not normally see on a regular basis. You might have something in common with, it might be a very diverse group of people, but it gets you engaged in the community and helps you kind of think outside your normal box.
When I think of that, I think of like my travels in Europe and that there's restaurants everywhere and there's places where people hang out in courtyards. I feel like in the US we've lost a little bit of that. Is that accurate? And what do you think are some of the reasons for that?
I think that that is a really good point. In my travels in Europe, I feel the same way. I think it's almost naturally ingrained in their culture. I think that Europe is a great example, but I think in the US, because of urban planning, a lot of like in the 60s and 70s, we went toward car culture, we went toward malls, we went toward which malls could be a third place, but we kind of went toward kind of steering away from our front stoops, and those places where you would connect with other people. Just walking down the street, I think a lot of Sesame Street, Who Are the People in Your Neighborhood was a song that it always drew me in because it was one of those things that you start to recognize the people in your community. Here in the US, we have really, I guess anywhere, but in the US more so, a lot of, we've got the working from home culture that really kind of came on during COVID. And as more people work from home, they have less outside community. They might join with people online. They might find things, to do online that is it's good. You're connecting with other people, but you're not doing it in a face-to-face sort of situation. And I think that it's really taking away from our ability to connect with one another and interact with one another.
Yeah. That's an interesting point about the remote work. And I've been thinking about that a lot as well for the podcast. I'm a big pro remote work person, but at the same time, as a remote worker, I find that I still feel lonely and I still feel like I haven't truly connected with people after a full days of work where I've been on Zoom with someone. And so it sounds like third places are one of the ways that we can just feel like we've connected with folks in the real world. Do you have more thoughts about the difference between the remote world and the real world and how third places play in?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm a freelance journalist, I've always kind of made my own schedule and I've always worked from home. So when the pandemic came on, I was ready for it. I knew what to do. I was here and I had a roommate at the time, so I had someone to connect with. But I realized how difficult it was for so many people. And I also realized that I wasn't getting that outside connection that I needed. During the pandemic, I would go for long walks to the beach. I would try and find ways to connect outside of home, which was also my workspace. And I would have online meetings with friends. We would have coffee meetups and everything. But there's just something about being in the same space with someone else. I always think of it sort of this this is kind of not quite a third space, but I think of it in terms of a shore house. I grew up on the East Coast, Jersey Shore girl, and I always really liked the idea of renting a shore house and people would kind of come and go. You know, they'd drop their things off the house, they'd go to the beach, but you'd have this common area. It wasn't quite your home because it was a vacation space, but it was a common area where people would come back and dine together and have stories to tell one another. They would go out on the street and do separate things. And just to have that communal aspect in person made such a difference. You know, you're sharing food together, you're sharing drinks together, you're sharing laughter together in a way that doing it on a computer screen doesn't quite compute.
Yes, pun intended. Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea of the shore house. I want to talk a little bit about some third places like a coffee shop or something that you might go to very casually. Maybe you're starting to see the same people, as you mentioned, like you're starting to have these connections where you recognize people, but they feel to me like loose connections, right? They're like people you see here and there, but maybe you say hey and you update them on something, but they're not necessarily your tight community. But there are obviously other third places where, to your point, maybe you're sharing stories, you're coming and going, you're having that kind of deep connection. So, talk a little bit about the value of maybe the looser connections and the tighter connections within third space and how you see that.
Yeah, I think there's a very wide range of third places that you can go to have this sort of connection. Say you go to a cafe that's in your neighborhood, and you'll start to see the same baristas. You might see some of the same customers. There's always, you know, the people that you start to recognize. I think of Cheers. I'm not a bar person, but I do think that Cheers is a really wonderful third place because, you know, Norm walks in and everyone knows his name and everyone knows each other and the stories and everything, but they're not necessarily people that would hang out on a regular basis. You know, they go in and they have this connection together and then they go their separate ways and they live their lives. You know, some of them might be married with kids, others might be, you know, a pilot that comes in town every once in a while. Even saying it that way, thinking about when I travel, you know, going to places that are familiar to me. When I harvest olives in Italy, you know, there are certain places, the focaccia place, that I know that I might recognize some people and feel this sense of community, that I feel like I belong, even though I'm on the other side of the world. Well, then you have the other third places that are kind of more geared toward your passions or your interests. So you might join a sports community, a hiking group, and that would be your third place. And the connections might be a little deeper because you start hiking with somebody on a regular basis and then you form a friendship. But the beauty about third places is you can have these loose connections, you can have these deeper friendships. It doesn't matter. You have a sense of belonging and you feel like this is a place that's important to you and that you're important to it, like you bring it something. And I love that feeling and that idea.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think that's really interesting. The sort of um, looser connections can be just as valuable in a lot of ways. Like, I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is just the idea of well being and what types of connections are good for us and healthy for us. And I think we know certain types of being married, for example, I keep coming back to there's this big body of research that says that men who are married are much happier and healthier and these kinds of things. It's a little bit less consistent for women, but it's still there, you know? Um, and And I think that we know these deep connections are valuable for us, but I think we've so easily with remote work and with Zoom and all these kinds of things come to these social media platforms and these digital spaces and said, okay, we have all these casual connections and I have 100,000 followers or whatever, and I've created a community. And
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And there is some connection there. And I've seen people do it really well. I've also seen it help a lot of people feel more connected. But at the same time, just going to the coffee shop and seeing your favorite barista has, in my opinion, a much more profound effect than commenting on somebody's post.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm thinking, I just spent a week with my father in Williamsburg, Virginia. He's 83, and we did a father-daughter trip. And one of the things I love about when I spend time with my dad is he'll always tell me stories about going into Vito's, the local restaurant that feeds him 4 nights a week. My mom passed away 10 years ago, and so Vito's has kind of become his third place. And I went into Vito's to pick up a cheesesteak, Philadelphia territory. And I said, thanks for taking care of my dad. And I told them who he was. And they're like, oh my God, we love him. He comes over and he sits over here and we ask him how things are. And when he orders more food, we figure you're in town. And it's his community. It's a
Yeah.
place they don't know really much about his life. They know he has a daughter that lives in San Francisco, but it's a place where he feels comfortable. And they take care of him in a way that I can't because I'm on the other side of the country. And I
Yeah.
just find that so valuable.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that for your dad. I'm just picturing your dad at this place. That's so lovely. And I think there could be some semblance of that in a digital world where someone checks in on you or something like that, but just even blending it with something like eating a meal, going and just
Yeah.
having a nourishing meal, I think is really important. There's a physical aspect to that. And that he essentially, I don't want to say replaced, that's a terrible word for your mother, but he was able to say, okay, now I'm alone and lonely here and I'm going to this new space that's going to give me some of the same things, not obviously the whole thing, but some of the same feelings.
Yeah. No, I think now my sister-in-law is going there as well. It's becoming a family sort of third place because they are a family. It's an Italian family. I'm not sure if they're from southern or northern Italy, but they really do. It's a local small place that they treat people in the neighborhood like their family.
Oh gosh, that's lovely. I want a Vito's.
I know.
Um, so I imagine, I mean, you are a freelance writer, you write about these things and you're obviously getting deep into this topic, but you also, I imagine you're a travel writer. I imagine that you find yourself in these places fairly often, whether it's in your own neighborhood or when you're traveling. What kinds of third places do you enjoy and how does that play into your work and your life?
It's interesting because I've wanted to write this story for a very long time. And so I was very excited that Smithsonian picked it up. And then I started researching third places and I realized how many there actually are that I was not taking advantage of. And that it's great because I was getting a lot of results for here in San Francisco. And so now I have tons of places to go and visit in my city. But when I'm traveling, a lot of times I'm on a schedule. So I don't get to take advantage of the neighborhood third places as much, but I'll definitely go into a cafe. And I have a trip coming up to Indiana, and I saw that they have the Porch Fest. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's concerts on front porches in small towns and local neighborhoods and things like that. And it started in Ithaca, New York, I believe in 2007, but now it's all over the country. I was talking to a friend in New Jersey and she said there's a Porch Fest in Collingswood, New Jersey coming up this weekend. And I thought, okay, I'll go to the Porch Fest in Indiana. I don't know anybody in Indiana, but I'll go to this Porch Fest. I'll enjoy music with the local community and I'll get to know people and I'll have this really great local experience. And maybe I'll meet some people that the next time I'm in Indiana, I can visit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pay more attention to these opportunities that offer themselves in places because I do think when you're traveling, it's a really great way to kind of know a place other than, say, you come to San Francisco, you see the Golden Gate Bridge, you go to Alcatraz, but there are meetups that you could do. Maybe do like a bicycling meetup and meet cyclists that live here in the city and then have something in common with them. Just think about the things that you like to do when you're at home and kind of put them onto the places that you visit. And I think it's a really wonderful way. It's been good for me to be able to start doing that kind of stuff. If I had more free time on my travels, I would definitely continue more of this third place exploring.
Yeah, for sure. Work travel is always a little like that.
Yeah.
Um, but what I love about that too is that one of the things I've talked about a number of times on this podcast is I think we're increasingly getting a little afraid of each other. But I think going to a place that you're not familiar with, hanging out, talking to a few people, being brave enough, I guess, to interact with folks that you don't know anything about them. You don't know their backgrounds or their beliefs or their values or anything like that. I think there's real value in that, right? And just in being able to go and just explore. And third places give us that space to say, we're all just here because we're getting a coffee or we're watching a band or something like that. And that gives us something to even start talking about just right away, right?
I love that. I was thinking as you were speaking about being a travel journalist and how speaking to strangers comes very naturally to me because I
Yeah.
do it so often. And I was in the airport a few months ago. I started talking to a couple that was in front of me. It turned out that they grew up near where I grew up. And we were talking for a bit, and I told them what I did, and they said, "Oh, that's why you're so comfortable talking with us." And I thought, I'm just comfortable because you seem like nice people, and I want to talk. But I realize that a lot of people have that fear of maybe just opening up a conversation with someone else. It doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be a contentious topic. There are so many things that you could talk about. We spoke for a very long time about my backpack, which was an Osprey backpack. And I had just gotten it for the trip. And so then I saw them later in line at a different section at the airport, and they're like, "Hey, Osprey," and it was just a very nice feeling to have that sort of camaraderie. I was traveling very far, I was by myself, but here were people that were going to be on a plane with me to the other side of the world. And I felt that I had a connection.
Mhm. I think the fear that we have around speaking to other people for the most part is kind of unfounded. Like we're all just humans. We enjoy a little chat with each other. I mean, maybe not everybody, but but I love that.
Right. And I do think that, being behind the computer screen, being behind the keyboard, we lose that ability to speak to one another so openly and so freely. And it's sort of like driving a car. I get very nervous when I have to drive because I don't do it here in the city. And when you're out of practice in this kind of in anything, it feels a little bit scary. But a third place allows you to kind of to have that sort of practice to go out and say hi to your person at your corner store, pet their dog and go for a walk in the park and say hi to the people that you're passing, and maybe something will come of that.
Yes, I think there's something about norms too. This is maybe a rabbit hole, but I've thought a lot lately about how I get on Zoom calls with 30 people at work, and people don't nod, they don't smile, they don't do anything on the Zoom call. When one person is speaking, they're just over here doing kind of whatever. You can't really tell that they're even paying attention. And so there's just a simple thing of like, I'm going to the shop, I'm going to ask you for something, or I'm going to ask you a question directly. If you ignore me, that's pretty weird. Like that's a pretty strange thing to do. Whereas we can just do that on Zoom calls. There's these new norms where we kind of don't react to each other in the same way. And I feel like it's challenging our ability to be in person with each other in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. I think of the guy that has the burrito shop down the street. Every time I go in, and I always say I'm going to go in more often, and I don't, he gets so excited to see me. And I think, oh, it's just this really nice in-person connection where if we were, in a Zoom call with 30 people, we probably wouldn't even notice each other.
Yes. Yes. I know it makes me very, very happy when someone knows my order at a restaurant. Like they're like, oh yeah, you. Hi.
Yeah, because you feel like you belong, and you
Yeah,
do. And it's a very nice feeling to have that.
exactly. It's underrated feeling, I
Yes.
think. So, is there a revival of third places? Are we starting to see more of them? What's a trend that you've been noticing in your research, or is it just that we need to really push for them?
Well, I think that a lot of cities and urban planners are really recognizing the need for third places, there has been research on either side. There have been people saying that we're losing our third places. There have been other places saying that third places are experiencing a revival. I think there is the recognition that third places are needed, especially in this digital age. And one of my favorite third places is Golden Gate Park here in San Francisco. But it's not just the park. I walk through the park, and on Sundays, there's free swing dancing. There is an outdoor roller skating rink. There's somebody that sets up his own DJ space every Sunday, an older man, and people come and dance. And every single pocket is its own third place. If you can't find a third place, you can create your own third place. I think that that's scary, but it's also something that could be a lot of fun. Think about the things that you like to do. If you like to picnic outside, maybe create a day where people come and picnic together. I see a lot of book stores doing silent reading events where people come and read together just to be in the same place together and share a commonality. In rural areas, it's a little bit difficult to find third places. So obviously, urban centers have a lot more of them, but there's always something. Reach out to rec centers. I was in northern BC a few months ago, and they have a rec center. I think it's called the Fort Nelson Rec Center. It is the best third place. They had curling events, they had a pool, they had a rock climbing wall, and at the curling events it was people, local teams playing, but there was a whole audience, and it just was really fun. People coming to connect because that was their place to get away from the house and the responsibilities and the workload. And I think that they're out there. We just have to look for them
Yeah, that makes sense. Look for them or create them, to your
or
point.
create.
And I,
Yeah,
yeah, I love that. And coming up a lot in this podcast is like there is something for everyone. Like you don't have to be an extreme extrovert who's going to do something crazy with other people. I spoke to someone who literally is in a swimming group, and it's not like you can talk while you're swimming,
right.
but you go and maybe before and after you're chatting with them and you're updating them on your life and that kind of stuff. And so I think I just love that. And the silent reading group is another great one where, yeah, you don't even have to talk. You can just go be with other people. I think there's like something underrated in just being physically with other people.
Yeah, there's a sense of safety and just I think the more we isolate ourselves from other people, the more fearful we can get. And at this time in our country and history, fear is playing a big role. And I think that there are plenty of ways for us to just get out and look each other in the eyes and smile. And I think it takes away a lot of that fear. Just being out. And even at the supermarket in New Jersey was like the social center. People go there for community. I think a lot of times we're in third places and we don't realize we're in those third places. So to be in tune with that, to make those connections, just to smile, to maybe ask somebody, like, is this chocolate sauce better than this chocolate sauce? Just any little thing and forging that little connection. I think it really can brighten your day and move things forward.
Completely. Yes. I love that you chose chocolate sauce, by the way. Good choice.
I think I'm hungry.
But yes, I agree. I love that you brought up grocery stores because I think that's
Mhm.
just such an underrated one that everybody has a grocery store or a corner market or something that they go to. And I remember I lived in Portland for a long time, and I remember my mom visiting me once, and we were in the line at the grocery store, and a bunch of people talked to us, and we were just chatting and whatever. And I remember leaving and her saying, "Gosh, I've never had so many people talk to me in the line at the grocery store." Like that was just a cultural thing in Portland or that particular grocery store, or I don't know, but it was really like heartwarming for her.
Yeah,
So I
I
think
love
that's a big deal.
that.
Yeah. Did you learn anything about yourself as you wrote this piece and your sort of relationship to these spaces or just anything really?
I did. I mean, I learned that I need to take more advantage for myself. I want to take more advantage of the third places that are around me because there are so many great opportunities. Actually, in my Smithsonian story, what kind of inspired the story at this time in my life is there's a place called Salu Hall here in San Francisco, and it's a food market, but it's a food market that really focuses on being a third place. They have different food vendors, but they have a lot of open seating, and they encourage people to come and do meetings there or work from there or do salons, which is, a bunch of people getting together talking about interesting ideas. And they have drag brunches on Sundays and they have different get-togethers. And I just thought this is such a wonderful place because it's in an area of the city. It's on Market and Fifth, between Fifth and Sixth, which is not the best area. It's near our Union Square, which has long been our shopping hub, but it's not the best area of the city, but it really encourages people to come and make it a better place. And I think third places can help areas of the city that are looking to kind of create more community. And it's also a place where people of all walks can come in. You could go sit there and not pay any money, just sit there and be part of the experience of being there and being in this public place. And I just find that really rewarding. So there's a joke that I just love Salu Hall, that I really do. I just think it's such a great idea to have this sort of place where nothing is expected of you, but if you want to be there and enjoy the food and enjoy the camaraderie and enjoy the bingo brunch or the drag brunch, I think, you're more than welcome. And these kind of places foster people coming and creating more and maybe spending money. And I think they just kind of push themselves forward.
Yeah. I love the point about it doesn't have to be about spending money. Like maybe sure there are plenty where you could go and spend money. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, you should take a class or something like that, which that's great. If you want to take a class, but you also don't have to be spending the money. You can
Right.
go and just hang out somewhere that's totally free. Hopefully you can find a place like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of libraries are doing a lot of different things right now where they're having certain classes or they're having lectures, things that are free, free computer classes. I know a friend of mine here in San Francisco, he's older, he goes to the library to take his computer class. And I just think libraries are really underrated. I used to be a person that was only going to buy my books new and not spend time in libraries. But now there's a library near here that has yoga classes once a week. And I
Oh,
think
wow.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of my library.
Yes, I have changed. I am a huge library fan. I just ordered a book earlier today.
Nice. Fabulous. Well, if you were talking to someone who is listening to this podcast and is feeling isolated, trying to find ways to get out there, what might you suggest about going and finding or starting a third place or just something that you've learned that would maybe give them a little bit of motivation?
So I'd really think about what brings you happiness and what brings you joy. What kind of things that you do you like to do outside of the house and outside of work? I mean, it could be something as simple as going for a walk, or maybe you're somebody that wants to get back into church, or maybe you wanted to try that new pumpkin latte that came out for the fall. I mean, there are many different ways to just get out there and start finding places that feel comfortable to you and where you can create community. I think a lot of times community is created without you even realizing it. I think back to this time here in San Francisco where I would go every Sunday to a place called the Orbit Room and I would have their cheese plate only on Sundays. I don't know. It was just a habit I got into. And I remember one day, not that long into it, but the server there said, "You're becoming sort of a regular." And I realized that I had created a third place for myself without even knowing that I was doing it. So, third places exist everywhere. As I mentioned, they're harder to find a lot of times in rural areas, but a lot of parks, state parks or local parks have activities that you can look into. Look at your favorite park and see what kind of activities are going on. Some of them have movie nights, some of them have holiday decorating events and things like that. And just get involved. Just try and put yourself out there because I think the rewards are greater than you'll realize.
Yes. Yeah, well said. Thank you so much, Laura. This has been such a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
We're going to put the link to your Smithsonian piece in the show notes so everyone can check that out. Please go read it. It's a really, really wonderful piece. Anything else you want to share, Laura?
I think one of the things that has made me so interested in third places is that I'm just a very curious person. And I would say tap into your curiosities and follow the things that interest you. And maybe if there's something that you're afraid of, maybe that is a sign to give it a chance and try something new. Because I think that fear can keep us from a lot of amazing things. And there's a reason that it's a third place and not a first place and not a second place. And that reason is that it's almost a bonus place. And bonuses are, they're rewards. So go out there and get your reward.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Laura. Really appreciate it. For everyone listening, thank you, thank you, thank you for giving this a listen. Please leave in the comments any thoughts that you have. Do you have your favorite third place that you want to share? Any stories that you've encountered in going out to your favorite third places? Any questions that you might have for Laura about third places? We would love to hear them. Please give us a comment. And otherwise, we will see you next time. Thanks so much.